joys of interviewing
I
at
know,
a coffee
right?
shop.
This is like ambitious and real and very interesting. Bringing some texture to the podcast recording experience.
Hola manis, welcome to Café con Pam, where we share our stories over cafecito. Yo soy Pam, and we bring you inspiring stories from first generation, second, third, sometimes Latinas, and people of the global majority. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and ring that bell so you never miss our cafecito time. And hey, for more incredible stories, you can also tune in to Café con Pam podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by No Mono, the traveling sound capsule que nos acompaña durante nuestro tour. No Mono streamlines the entire process. The sound capsule simplifies it all. We just have to clip on a mic, we hit record, and we hear your story. Once the recording is done, it seamlessly uploads the content to the No Mono cloud, and it makes things so much easier because the enhancement feature diligently polishes the audio to perfection, providing us with the convenience to refine and edit the recordings if we need to. En este episodio nos vas a acompañar a conocer la historia de Denise Soler Cox. After going from a stay-at-home mom to award-winning activist and filmmaker, top 100 podcaster, and sought-after international speaker, Denise Soler Cox uses her experience to produce inspiring content that sparks meaningful and transformative dialogue. Este episodio is really special. It really is, because you will hear it during our conversation. Denise was episode 10 of Café con Pop podcast. It truly felt like a full circle moment to be able to show up to Denise and be like, look, now we are doing video content and in-person video content. So that's really cool for us to be able to do that. And I'll let you just enjoy our conversation. I'm not going to embellish it anymore. Here it is, my talk with Denise Soler Cox. We are in Denver, and we are going to go talk to Denise Soler Cox, who was on episode 10 of Café con Pam. And we're going to do a tour, explore, see what's up in Denver, and then we'll go from there. We got my thank you for podcasting with us. We got our No Mono. We're ready. Let's do this. Vámonos.
Denise, hi, how are you?
Hello, I'm fabulous. How are you?
I'm well. It's been a long time.
I know.
We've seen each other in between.
Well, you know what? I feel like you're always weaving in and out of my life, whether you like it or not. So congratulations.
So
I just listened to Rachel Rogers' audio product, and I was like, excuse me. And I heard, your story. She told your story, or part of it.
She did?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I didn't know that.
You have to listen to it. Yes. She said, and Café con Pam, and blah, blah, blah. And she, oh my gosh, her most recent product, she talks about you. Yes. I was like, yes, a Latina. And yes, I know her.
Wow.
Yep. Yes.
Hey, I'll check that out. Thank you for that notice.
Yeah, and she names the podcast, which I was like so happy. She really did a good job at like honoring you, honoring your work, and presenting the part of your story that she was there to share. It was very well presented.
That's awesome. Okay, I'll check it out. Thank you. So, Denise, you were at Café con Pam episode 10.
Oh my gosh.
Like, what? And I think it's important to make this like a full circle moment, because back then I listened to your podcast. So you had Enye podcast.
Yeah, the Project Enye podcast. It was such a creative name.
Yeah. And I heard about your film at the time, and I was like, oh my gosh, goals. And you were in my wish list of like, one day I'm going to interview Denise.
Oh my gosh, that's so great.
And so many other people. But I was like, you know what? Fuck it, I'm just gonna reach out. But expecting no response like the rest of the people on that list. And you happened to respond, and you were like, of course, I'd be delighted to do it. Let's go. And I was like,
oh
what?
Oh my gosh.
And so you were episode 10. So all of those, like, probably up to episode 30 were the people that decided to say yes to this tiny project that, because you know what a podcast was. A lot of people are like, I don't know what a podcast is, like, but sure, I'll come on.
Yes.
And so thank you for saying yes to episode 10.
Of course. My pleasure. And we did a little bit of catching up before this, but I told you how much I appreciated being on episode 10, because I never take that for granted when someone wants to take their time to feature my story. I think it's a really beautiful gift that we can give each other.
Yeah.
And you gave that to me very early on. And I'll never forget it.
Thank you. Thank you for going on. So back then, you were doing Project Enye.
Yes.
It's been a few years.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So it has been a few years.
Where
10
are we
years.
now?
It's 10 years since 10 years this past January, I walked into my former creative partner's office and pitched him the idea for the movie.
Wow.
10 years ago.
Wow.
8 years ago, our movie came out.
And I interviewed, I think, a year after.
Okay, 2016. It was 2016 is when the movie came out. So
I started Café con Pam in 2016.
No kidding. All right. So because I know we talked very early on.
Yeah, super early. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you were living downtown.
Yeah.
Denver still.
Yeah.
So we're in Denver today.
Yes.
And I don't think I could watch the film yet.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then like it was a few months later that you were like, here's the link with the access code.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Oh, that's so great. That's so great. Yes, it's been a while since that time.
So what has happened since Denise was like, I'm gonna do this documentary. And we're gonna make it happen.
Yeah.
Where are we now?
Well, I think probably one thing that I can say that'll be interesting to the people that know who I am, that are, and maybe have followed my journey. A lot of people are curious about my wedding rings, and they don't know, like if I ever got wedding rings, if my husband and I ever got our wedding rings back, because a lot of people wanted me to have my exact ring back, which it's funny, we. And I'll give people some context. While I was making the film, I ran out of money and to live.
Yeah.
I gave everything to the movie, and so I realized at the very end of 1 month, I realized we weren't going to have enough money to pay our rent, which I hesitate because I sound like a crazy person, but I was kind of crazy, and I was kind of obsessed.
A lot of us have been there.
Yeah. And like, there's this expression, a magnificent obsession. And it's like something that just takes over your life.
Yes.
And for me, the movie did. In full-blown Technicolor, I could not think, everything about my life was about the film, and then about my marriage and about my kids and being a mom. There were only three things. And so I had to kind of make a game day decision. We have to sell something. And the thing that we had that had the most value besides our car, which was later repoed.
So you made a good decision.
Yeah, was to sell our wedding bands. And so we sold them, and it was a source of a lot of embarrassment and shame for me, but also something that I felt very certain was the right thing to do. And then just 2 years ago, I think now, or it feels like a year, but it wasn't last year, it was the year before, I just was like to my husband, let's get our rings again. Like, because after a while, I was like, I don't care about the rings. Like the ring, when I had cared so much about my wedding and things, right? And symbols. And a lot of people are like, yeah, but it's like a symbol. And I'm like, yeah, it is a symbol. But guess what? Like, I realized I didn't need it. Yeah, like my commitment. Exactly. His commitment to me, his decision to go all in on me.
Yes.
That, man, that is commitment, right? And so my marriage blossomed.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm not sure I'd have the same marriage if that didn't happen. You know what I mean? Like if I didn't do that. And so anyway, so we got them back. Here's another very interesting thing that a lot of people don't know is the film won a few awards, right? And it only got into like 3 or 4 film festivals. And it was at those film festivals that it won awards. At the other 30, 40 festivals that we entered, we did not get in.
Wow.
We were declined. And I thought...
No explanation.
No explanation until we had an explanation, which was, well, I would say about 2/3 through of hearing responses when I was like a puddle on the floor, like, I guess the movie sucks. Oh my gosh, I guess it totally sucks.
Yeah.
No one wants to exhibit it. No one wants to, this whole plan in my mind of how this should go. I'm going to go to all these film festivals and then I'm going to do all this press. And you know, like how we kind of, we plan out our lives the way we think it's going to go. And we're just so certain it's going to go like that. And it's like, no.
Just kidding.
Yeah, that's not actually how this is going to go.
Yes, for sure.
And back then, I didn't know that it would go better. Back then, I was just attached to this outcome, though, right? So I told.
Oh my gosh.
So I told my partner, I'm like, I just don't understand, like why? And so he actually called a friend of his that runs the Aspen Film Festival, and he said, "Why didn't we get accepted?" And the friend said, "Your movie's too long, Henry. Your movie's too long." Boom.
That's it.
That's it. Because it's a short. It's 37 minutes.
Gosh.
40 minutes is the cutoff. And shorts programs at film festivals, they
Yeah.
only accept films that are like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. But they're not going to accept a 40 or almost 40-minute film. So like categorically, that's why we didn't get in.
Oh my god.
But I did not know that. So I was.
Of course.
So then I was like, well, I guess let's just put the film up. I guess let's just put the trailer up on Facebook and see what happens, because I don't know what else to do.
Right.
And I just had it on my list of 50 million things I had to do that day. And wouldn't you know it, I put the trailer up on Facebook. And over the course of the next year, it got 1 million views.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. It was pre-algorithmic change
Right.
in Facebook, when people were actually seeing things on Facebook pages without ads. And then we actually, we put, after, I don't know how many, a few 100,000 organic views, we did put money behind it, and we pushed it all over the country and in all different regions with Facebook ads. And that it was the aggregated views was 1 million or over 1 million. And then people started calling me and asking me to speak.
Which I love that reflection, because it shows how, like you said, sometimes we get attached to what we think should happen, but then the universe is like, actually, let me derail you a little bit. Like, you are gonna get disappointment. You're gonna like get on the floor, probably cry about it. And once you get up, you're gonna see that there's another way.
Yes.
Better.
Yep. Who knew, right?
Oh
and
my gosh.
here's what's noteworthy about that is I had to build my confidence.
Totally.
You know, because I'm like, I guess this thing that I traded all this time for, all this energy for, that I got my car repoed for, that I sold my wedding rings for, that I made all the sacrifice for, I guess it just sucks. Like that, you know?
Yeah.
And so it either sucks or it's great and I need to stand behind its greatness. I literally had that choice. And it was like, well, I guess I'll just put the trailer up. That required something of me.
Totally.
It like required me to like have the guts to believe in this thing that I did.
Totally.
And then it was like whoosh.
Because
And
then you didn't have any control of who was gonna see it.
right.
Versus like putting it on a festival is like, you know, the people that are coming to the festival.
Yeah.
But like out on Facebook is like, I don't know.
I don't know who's gonna see it, I don't know what they're gonna say, I don't know what's gonna happen.
Dang.
And people were like, well, can we see this? Can you come? And they wanted me to come to answer questions. And then they're like, can you come and talk about what you learned? And I'm like, really? And then I'm like, I guess I need a form. I put a form up. I put a Google form because I had no other, I didn't know, I was like,
Totally.
name, first, last, the most
Reason?
basic stuff. Yeah, whatever it is. And then they started, like literally that first spreadsheet was like almost 300 requests in like a month maybe.
Gosh.
Yeah. And
That's
it was from
awesome.
crazy, amazing places.
So what shifted in your mind that opened up that path? Was it just like, I'm gonna put it on Facebook and see what happens?
I think like what happened was I was just like at the end when people are like, the plan that I had been planning, and the thing is it's not cheap to enter film festivals.
Right.
It's like $25 if they give you a discount, but mostly it was $50. We spent almost $5,000 entering film festivals.
And you made it to 3.
And we made it into 3, maybe 4, I'm just thinking, but we got 3 or 4 awards. It was a very big deal, right?
Wow.
But still, I was like looking at all of these. We had everything mapped out by the months, all the festivals, and I was like kind of plotting out this whole film festival tour. And then I literally had to take all the Post-its down. I had to take everything away because it was like my entire plan was completely gone.
Yes.
And so I was like, well, I guess we'll just put the trailer up and see. I have no other ideas. And that's the thing, is every time this ever got hard, every time, I couldn't think of anything else to do. You know what I mean? So like, for anyone listening, if you can't think of anything else to do, then they're getting served their coffee. That's the pause here. For people listening, if you are like, this sucks, I'm at a standstill, my plan isn't working, what should I do? I can't think of anything else to do. Then here's what there is to do. Just take the day off and get up the next morning and keep going. Because if you can't think of anything else, then you're still meant to do that thing. If you can think of something else, then do that thing, right? So just push the needle down an inch or a centimeter, whatever. But like, you're supposed to be doing it. You're not always going to get the whole plan. You're just not.
Just not.
Right?
I can resonate with that so much. Thank you for sharing, because Café con Pam, I always wanted to do this, to literally sit down at a coffee shop. But back then, I tried it one time, and I didn't have the equipment. You know, we didn't have the no mono, we didn't have the camera. Like, I had a phone, and I had like lavalier mics connected to my phone. Like, it just did not work.
Okay, yeah.
And so I did an interview with Maribel Lara.
Oh, yeah.
And
she's amazing.
She's amazing.
I love her.
And so we did it at a coffee shop in LA, and it was the worst sound. I felt so bad.
Oh, no, that sucks.
And so that was a moment where I'm like, my idea's not going to work.
Oh.
But here we are, 7 years later,
and it's working,
doing
yo.
it.
It's working.
Yeah, I mean,
we got
we
it
had
to work.
It took a minute. It took a minute, but we arrived. But I had to shift
Yes.
to see, okay, we're going to do it like online. And I had to shift to say, well, I don't have a studio. I don't have the capital either of these huge podcasters. So I'm just going to get like my little mic that I bought from Craigslist, and it was from a retired rapper. So it was the worst mic because
That's
it was
so great.
It wasn't like I always forget the difference. So there's the microphones that only do your voice, and there's the microphones that catch everything.
Ah, okay.
It was that one.
Oh.
It wasn't an appropriate mic for podcasting.
Okay.
And you got to do what you got to do.
Yep.
But the idea, I couldn't not do it,
Yes.
to your point.
Yep.
And so you just find ways.
Yes. My first interview for Project Enya for our sizzle reel, which nobody knows, was with Edward James Olmos, the dad from Selena. And we were we were so poorly equipped to do what we were doing. My partner, who I ended up making the film with, was not my partner at that time. He introduced me to somebody who didn't have a lot of experience. I had no experience, but I was able to get the interview.
Wow.
But I didn't know how to set up a shoot. I didn't know how to set up lighting. I didn't know anything, right? Just like but you just did it. We did it, and now we have it. It's actually findable, that poorly lit, poorly set up shot, right? It's in our sizzle reel with him. But but I needed that to like have that, you know what, I can do it. I can do the most important part, which is actually getting it done.
Right.
Because we can always, actually interesting, the reason why, or one of the reasons why I'm not working with that gentleman anymore is because he kind of took over the interview, right? Which, if you know me, it would be like, wait, you let somebody take over an interview? Yes, I did. Because you know what? When I'm new, I'll speak for myself. I was so new and so green. My confidence, out of 10 being the most confident, was a 1. And sometimes when we disregard, like feel like imposter syndrome or feel like, who am I to be here, blah, 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 we forget to bring out our strongest assets. And for me, it would be like assertiveness. It would be like, no, actually, this is my job. You can stand behind the camera. But I kind of left that at the door. And that was a learning lesson for me, right? So unforgettable. I needed to do it. The stakes were very high. Lesson learned.
Yeah.
Lesson learned, right? That interview was not in the movie because it didn't make it, because it was horrible, right? But it boosted my confidence.
Totally.
And I learned so much.
That was the reason.
Yep, exactly.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening with your wedding rings?
Oh, well, I mean, so, we sold them. We took them to a store in Cherry Creek. It was mortifying.
You decided not to get them.
Oh, wait, no. We sold them that day, right? But then for years, I couldn't afford a few $1,000s. I didn't have a few $1,000s to spare. And then when, it's like, money is such that it's like, well, would I rather go on vacation? Would I rather whatever? And so I always chose something else, mostly having to do with my kids. And so any money that might have been allotted to the rings simply was not. And then it just became not important. But then I just got, this feeling like I'm ready to have rings now.
Nice.
I love that. Went and we got them made. And it was like this really beautiful moment for my husband and I to share. And like, I was, it means a lot. Like, and it make me cry right now. Like he took, when you marry somebody, right?
Yeah.
It's like the ultimate, I trust you.
Right.
We got this forever. Yeah. You and me. And like, and then there's like these tests that kind of test the salt of the marriage.
Yeah.
And that was like a test. And like, it meant a lot to me. I'm a very sentimental person. It meant a lot to me.
Totally.
And so we got them as a sign, like, we made it. I did it. We're here. Like, we can afford these. And like, we have this beautiful story and like evidence.
Yes.
Right?
What are you drinking?
I mean, like the gringo café con leche, a latte. Well, I guess it's French, right?
Yes. I had a latte earlier.
You did?
Yeah, and it's really good. It's a good latte. For sure. I love that. Tell us where we are. So you picked this location.
So we are in a very loud coffee shop right now, and normally I like to sit where it's a little bit quieter, which is in the front. But at least they're speaking Spanish, so we can feel at home, right? Yeah. We're in a place called Devil's Food, and it's really close to my daughter's high school, and it's a place I like to hang. I love the vibe in here. It's small. It's like in that commercial feeling. And
they bake every day.
Oh, is that right? Yeah, everything is super good. I'm like
Yeah.
off gluten right now. I'm an on again, off again gluten person, and I really should be mostly off. But when I'm on, and they also have great Rice Krispie treats. That's gluten free. Note to self.
Oh, it's a beautiful place. I did recording of it earlier, so we'll show it.
Oh, cool.
Thank you for inviting me here.
Sure.
It's lovely.
Sure.
So, how did it go from Project Enye, film is launched, and then how did we get into the belonging space?
Yeah, so super interesting. There were two themes that came out. After hundreds of invitations, right now I'm over 100 or over 400 stages. I stopped counting, and so I'm going to say ish, right? Because I kind of get a sense because I do about 50 to 60 events a year.
Nice.
That certain conversations are predictable, right? When you're in the exact same conversation over and over again, people see my film or they hear my keynote and they want to talk about certain things. And the thing is, I started realizing that the most powerful thing that people wanted to talk about when everything about Latino identity was kind of exhausted. Like after we kind of looked at the room and we examined the ceilings and the floors and kind of understood ourselves, and after we brought up all the things, it always ended up that we were talking about belonging. And that really, really, what this is about and what the film is about belonging. Now, when I started the film, I wanted to make sure that people didn't feel alone, because that's how I felt my whole life until one night I didn't, and I realized I wasn't alone. My goal was to make sure people didn't feel alone.
Yes.
That's it. It was very simple. And then after the film and having these conversations, I realized that it's not being alone is like almost the same exact thing as belonging. And so that's what really this is about. And I want my work, because people began to call me outside of our community, because mostly people were inviting me from our community, the Latinos at this company, the Latinos in that company, like at VaynerMedia, because of Maribel. That's why I get to say that I went there, right? So like the most amazing women in our community, in our shared community, came into my life as a result of inviting me to speak or screen my film, etc. And then people outside the community started inviting me. And I'll be honest, I was like, why are they interested? What could I possibly say?
Yeah.
My stuff is so Latino. It's so uniquely first gen. It's so uniquely diaspora, for the diaspora.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is that they what it is that's so interesting to them and how can I possibly provide it, right?
Right.
But then I realized if I focus on belonging, which is really what I know that this work is about, and I develop that, I can serve that to them in a meaningful way. And I could always give the credit to our community and what I learned from being a part of our community, so I still can be tethered, right? And I can give even more and serve even more and show how valuable I can share about belonging and share how valuable our community is at the same time.
I love that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can connect the dots.
Yes. So people started calling me for belonging stuff. And then I started calling myself an accidental belonging expert.
I love that.
Because everything I learned is actually research back. Because then I started reading all the belonging books and doing all the research myself. And my husband actually helps me a lot with the research. And he's like, this is so interesting. There's all these people at Harvard and Stanford. They're doing all this stuff, like qualitatively, like inviting people to discuss things related to belonging. And they're finding out all the same things that you're talking about on stage that you learned. And I'm like, well, I'm on the right track.
They're studying it and you're living it.
Yep, and that's the difference between the work that I do is very qualitative and experiential based versus research based, which is important too. It's important for me to say, this is research backed. I know this is going to work because the research says it works, but guess what? So does my experience.
My lived experience says it.
And the thing is, I could tell you 10 stories about how this works. Totally. And so it helps me.
It helps people resonate.
Yes.
Because when you're like, when I was 12 and this happened to me, there's going to be other people that are going to be like, oh my gosh, I was 17 when this happened to me.
Yep.
Totally.
Yeah. And I think that people maybe don't realize how much in common we have, especially in our struggles. And so cracking that open and sharing that with people is a really cool I would say tactic that I use or strategy from the stage. And it's like to choose to be as authentic as I can possibly be and to tell the most honest version of my story is the best way in to be able to talk about and teach about belonging.
Yeah. And you're so relatable. Like I feel like the way that you share from the heart, and this is when people can be like, I'm like you. Which makes a difference when we get to see people on stages and it's like, well, sure, you're pulling the research, but how do you know?
Right. I mean, and I kind of feel like, and I don't know if that's like a Latino thing or a marginalized community thing or just like a healthy level of skepticism. Like I remember being at an event where they were teaching about speaking. This is years ago. Like when I was like, well, I'm getting invited to speak. I want to be better. So I'm going to sign up and I'm going to go to Fort Lauderdale. And I did this weekend or this 3-day event, right? And I was like, I have a question. And I was like, can you share a story about like your lowest point?
Yes.
And like, just tell me how you got where you are, Yeah. Just like help me see it for myself, Yeah. And he said no. And he said, he said, no, I need to think about it. And then, and I was like, wow, that's lame, right? But very good to learn, like how disappointed I felt, but also how the people around me were like, oh, that's not cool. You know what I mean? Like the audience, they don't like that.
They don't
right?
like that.
And then the next day, what he did was, he said, someone asked me yesterday about my lowest point, and I gave it some thought, and I decided, and I'm going to share with you today. But here's the part that was that wasn't great, right? So it was great is he shared it. It was a fantastic story. What I thought was left something to be desired was that he used it to sell his program. And I'm like, dude, just be yourself, right? Can you just share? Can you just tell me when it was hard without trying to sell me something?
Totally.
Right? And I don't. If someone wants to sell something, I'm all for it. I'm all about it, right? And I just felt like if we abuse, this is something that can be used for good, and I'm not going to put that in the category of evil, but it also can be used for things that are unsavory, right? And so if you're going to use this as a tactic, like I said, I I hesitate to even say tactic or strategy, but I do trade on this. I trade on being my full self. That also means my heart is wide open. That also means I get hurt really easily. Yeah. That also means because I'm fully available, that I get super tired because I get very drained. But the thing is, if I don't present myself at my most authentic, then what am I doing there, right? I'm here to change lives, to transform communities, and to help people that don't feel like they belong to belong. It requires me to be my most authentic and be demonstrative of that. And so I felt like it was just in poor taste. And so, and at the same time, I have a program that I'm going to be selling about belonging. And so but I feel like a time and a place. We'll say it like that. It's a thin line that we walk when it comes to stuff like that.
Absolutely. As a marketer, I think there's a really fine line between influencing and persuading.
Yes.
And so I think the vulnerability of your story has that power to influence in such ways like you've done, and how people come after your talks and they're like, oh my gosh, like you just shared my story and you were able to encapsulate what I didn't know how to say, and et cetera, et cetera. And then there's this fine line when you cross it to say, well, and buy my thing.
Yeah.
I think, and that's where the not so tasty marketing comes.
Yeah. It's weird, right?
It is weird.
I've never talked about that before. Like on a podcast or anything, I normally, but it's important. It's important because we all have that superpower, and I feel like, if we're going to use it, we should use it for good.
Totally. Totally. And it also makes me think of the infamous rags to riches story that it's so overused in marketing, and lots of bro marketers are going to teach it to you to share it. And I think, to your point, the rags to riches story works because it to your belonging, it gets people from like, this is where you are and this is where you could be, but it misses the context.
Yeah.
And the context is really important so people know and understand that there are so many steps that you have to go through. Like, it's not like you just do a quantum leap.
Right. As much as I, would have said, 8 years ago, I wish this happened, this opportunity came to me. I wish that I was on stages with thousands of people in the audience 8 years ago. Guess what? I would have been a disaster 8 years ago. I would have been a disaster 5 years ago, maybe even 4 years ago. Like some of the rooms I've been in, like I was actually in a room last January, and I can get busy, I can get distracted, and sometimes like events are like, when I'm busy, I'm like, what's the next event? Okay, what am I packing? What do I need? And that's just how life is sometimes for me, right? And so I went, I was on the phone with a friend of mine who's a speaker, and I was asking her, because I wanted to try something new in a keynote. And I'm like, what do you think of this? Or do you have any good ideas about this? And she's like, yeah, let me, and then she's like, well, tell me about your event. Who's in the audience? I'm like 200 people. It's in Chicago. It's going to be a great crowd, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, okay, cool. And then we just focused on her idea, me getting her feedback, kind of shaping an idea, a new thing I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I get
for the 200 people.
For the 200 people. Then I get to the event, and I'm like, wow, there's a lot more than 200 people in this hotel. Like, am I in a breakout? That's cool. That's great if I am, right? But there's definitely a lot more people than 200 here. And I thought, and I'm the closing speaker. So I was like, hey, can I see the room that I'm going to be doing the closing keynote in? And then, because I was going to do a sound check, but I was like, right when I got there, I'm like, I need to see this room because this is not adding up.
Right.
So I go to the room.
In the lobby are 200 people.
Yeah, there are like 200 people online to check in to this hotel.
Oh,
it's a big hotel. It's the Hilton in Chicago. That's like right on the water, right? And I opened the door, and I was like, there are thousands of people in this room. I'm like, how many people are in this room? And she's like, oh, like about 4,200 people.
Oh my, that's not 200.
Yeah. And then I was like, are all these people going to be here? I'm like, yeah, they're coming back? Oh, yeah. I was like, thanks for the heads up, right? But it's interesting. I wouldn't have been ready for that. I was hardly ready for it then. And the thing is, I knew I had spoken one time to a group of 4,000 people. It's a whole different energy that you have to summon. It's a whole different thing. And the thing is, when looking in front, I'll speak for myself, looking at it like objectively, like 4,000 people, 10,000 people, 20,000 people, right? Yeah. That's what I want, except for I don't know what I need to do with my energy.
Yeah, your
I don't
nervous
know-
system. You need to like
Yes.
get it in check.
Well, yeah, get it in check, but also on the stage, like there's a contracting that I do before, and then it's like, whoosh, that's hard to describe, but like
Yes.
to give energy to 4,000 people is a whole different thing to give energy to 200,
Very.
which is why I
I've
think,
talked to 5,000.
no kidding,
Yeah.
rock on.
Yeah.
So you know what I'm talking
That was
about.
intense.
Yes.
You have to like expand.
Yes, you do. And it's real.
It's very real.
And like their reactions to you, it's like a whole nother
And the reaction
thing.
from the person like in the very back and the person in the front, and like there's so many layers.
There's so many layers.
So what did you do?
I mean,
Did you change what you had planned for the
I
200?
changed nothing. You know what I did? I do what I always do, which is spend the entire time in my hotel room, pretty much. I'll go to things. I'll participate in the conference if they allow me to participate. Walk around, whatever, have meals, try to meet people, and then I just spent the rest of the time rehearsing. I rehearsed that thing so many times, backwards and forwards, and there's actually on LinkedIn, if anybody follows me on LinkedIn, from January of last year, there's a post, and probably on my Instagram too, of me. There's a 2-minute video that we share. That's like my intro video, and it's like me with all these people, like, and it kind of builds, and I shot like a cannon, and I started dancing, and like just was like, that was another idea I had is I'm gonna dance on this stage.
Yes.
I'm gonna like I'm just gonna bring it all.
Yes.
And they were great. They were the perfect audience, and it was the best idea. And then my girlfriend's idea that we had helped, shape and stick in.
Yes.
That all worked. And yeah, but I wouldn't have been ready for that.
I was gonna say, but like 8 years ago, Denise wouldn't have done that.
No. And it's good to have aspirations. It's good to say one day I want to be. But it's also really important to allow yourself to become the person that you need to become to do that thing. And the years of becoming are not to be underestimated.
Yes.
And also not to, I've told a friend yesterday, I'm like, I have like disappointed and frustrated are two of my hardest qualities that I deal with. It's the two things I struggle with the most. Why isn't this here now?
Yeah.
And like I'm frustrated that this doesn't look the way that I want this to look. This is facts. This is truth. This is the real Denise, right?
Yes.
And I have to temper that. That's like my big lesson. And I think, and hopefully this is helpful to anyone who's listening, because the gift of knowing that and being able to share it with you is that I get to say, yeah, you know what, my becoming is the most important part of the story.
Yes.
My having patience with myself, grace with myself, and knowing that if I progress an inch today, it doesn't take away from anything. Just as long as I make progress, right? You can pause too, you can stop.
Yes.
And then go an inch and then a mile the next day, a few feet the next day.
Totally.
But the taking away of, like being frustrated and being disappointed dishonors my own journey, our journey, what we're all here to do. Most of the story is the journey, right?
Yes.
Most of the freaking story is the journey.
Yes. So, what's next with belonging? What can we expect from Denise?
Yeah, so I'm actually
We
working.
can talk for a long time, but I promise 30 minutes.
No, it's all good. It's all good. And my girls should be coming in. You have to let me know if you see two teenagers walking in. So now I've been talking about belonging now for a few years,
Yes.
right? So I started talking about it during the pandemic, and it's been, 4 years. My
you
fourth
believe
year,
it?
which I know it's wild. It's wild, and so to me, this is the podcast where I share things I've never shared before. So this is the third thing I've never shared. So when people would talk about manifesting and they're like, you gotta believe, believe it, right? And it's like, yeah, but how?
Right. Yes.
Like to me, that's like pretending. But then it is kind of like pretending, right?
Yes.
And to me, belonging is like the missing piece between like where we are and like whenever the manifestation and the belief work, right? But belonging is like the road.
In between.
Belonging is in between, and it is what, because the thing that we tell ourselves, the thing that I told myself, someone like me doesn't do things like that. Someone like me doesn't make, how could someone like me that didn't go to film school, that has no movie money to make a movie, that doesn't know anybody but one person.
Right.
How can someone like me belong in the space of making something, a movie that could change lives,
Wow.
and do what I want in my mind to do, right? I had to believe that I belonged to that group of people. Now, the belief doesn't have to be, it's temporal. It could be a few seconds. It could be a few minutes, right? But the belief in belonging is actually the belief work that there is. I believe I belong in the group of people that does great things. Now, what comes up is everything about me that doesn't believe that to be true, about my own belonging. And then I get a chance to work on that, right?
Yes.
Like, oh, so I didn't get into all those festivals. I guess the story that I shared from my heart, that I worked so hard on, that all these amazing people were a part of, sucks? No, it was great. And it's still great. People from all over the world contact me to this day to tell me how much it changed their life, right? You'd be surprised how many people still believe that they're alone. And it helps them to not feel alone, right? I had to be willing to belong to the group of people that, despite all the evidence, this thing that I had done was still good.
Wow.
And so do you understand what I'm saying? And so what's next about belonging, aside from continuing to have the chance to speak to people about it from stages, teach people about it, is I'm working on a quiz right now.
And this probably might release by then.
Oh,
So in
fantastic.
April?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
I'll send you the link then,
Okay.
because I'd love for people to take it. And it really is, the link is a gift to people because I know, it's going to lead to a course. It will. And if somebody feels like they want to take the course, then they should take it. And it's going to be very affordable. And what I will share is I will be able to just tell that person, whoever takes it, based on the questions, what their belonging gap is.
I love that.
And so like a lot of times we're like, I don't know. And we think it's sometimes things that are correct, right? And sometimes things that are not. The whole thing is that I have this wild understanding, and it's really sourced from my own feelings of a lack of belonging. Yeah, and then also talking to people and just being like, if we could just add this, I know you would feel like you belong, even in places that maybe, maybe you have never felt like that. Like you can bring your own belonging. And the reason why it's important is because we have work to do, especially Latinas and marginalized communities. We have work to do. And the diversification of storytelling, I guess I'm very close to that, and like seeing the lack of opportunities and the lack of representation in the media. And even in my work as a speaker, do you think Latinas are hiring me all the time? No, they are not. Latinas are the assistants in the legal department, or maybe they're heads of their department, but most often they're in a support role. And they're the ones that are saying, you should have her speak at our next event. They're the ones. They have been my champions, right? I need all those women. We need all those women to get promoted, to start businesses, to go and experience their own agency. But the very first thing that must happen, they got to believe they belong. And all the crazy places and spaces that they don't believe. And a lot of it is the fear of saying it out loud.
Yes.
Like some people will be like, I don't even want to say this out loud because I feel like you're going to think I'm crazy. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, just tell me. Because one time, my thing sounded crazy, and I needed someone to listen to me and say, that's a great idea. I think you should do it.
Can do it.
Yes. So.
Oh my God. This is so fun. So tell us all the places and spaces where we can find you. And we'll have it in the notes.
Yes, of course. So Denise Soler Cox is .com on LinkedIn and Instagram, and then I'm definitely I'm on there on Threads, mostly just lurking, learning.
Yeah,
and,
I love Threads.
Oh my gosh, Threads is awesome.
It's the best.
Threads are like the nice people,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
nice kids.
Yes.
So, and then there is I am writing a book, and there is I'm going to start sharing my journey with people.
Yeah.
So if people want to jump on that, they can sign up. If you can put that link,
Yep.
they can sign
I signed up.
Oh, awesome. And so I have yet to send an email, which is kind of, because it's weird. It's like, that's another thing that I do. Anything really big.
Yes.
A lot of times I've waited to do like important things. Like if I get into something, I wait till to buy the tickets It's like a weird wiring. I don't know. But like this thing needed to happen, which already happened, which I'll make an announcement about. And
Maybe we can talk about galleta culture offline.
I would love that. Yeah, let's talk about that offline.
It's related to belonging.
It totally
your
is.
belonging comes, and then I have the 5 principles of galleta culture.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes, let's talk about it.
Yes.
So
we can sign up to hear news about the book. And
Yes.
I'll put the links in the notes.
Yeah.
So make sure that people click on it.
yeah.
So we have your social media, your website, and people can reach out through there if they want to
Yeah.
work with you, all the things.
Yeah, well, right now it's, so there'll be this course. They can take the quiz. And then if they have a chance to, there's a lot of really great speakers out there and not a lot of Latina speakers out there. And so, I would love for people to think of me or put my name in the hat or whatever to consider a speaker about belonging.
I love that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
That's
You're
awesome.
welcome.
Y bueno, ¿qué tal? That was the episode. Gracias for stopping by. Don't forget to, and remember to share this story with your amigas, your primas, your tias, everyone who you may think they will resonate with this story. And to learn more about all of our stories, you can check out cafeconpam.com. Check us out. Follow us at Café con Pam Podcast on all the handles. Y bueno, manis, stay shining. Yo soy Pam Rubias y nos vemos en el próximo cafecito.
Sabrosura pa' ti que